it sounds good to say buy and hold, but the truth is that many breadwinners with 401ks or plans like the 401k had to delay their retirement, go back to work after the bloodbath that we all took in 2008. So let's look at what happens to these piles of money once we factor in market volatility. And we've got to do that because he says it's in an IRA, and most IRAs are like 401ks, and the invested assets are in the stock market. So let's just look at the two piles here once we put in the market volatility, and we see that it destroys the piles almost by half. So the only thing I want to really point to this thing is the negative returns that we see right here in the 2001. This is the dot-com crash, 9/11 stuff that happened. Everybody got hit pretty hard. And then in 2008, during the housing bubble, my eyes aren't working real well, but isn't this the one that shows that investor A almost lost $200,000 during that period? $177,000 in one swoop. All right, so then there's, by the way, I'll mention this is a absolutely free calculator. You can play with this all you want. Just go to privatizebankingcenter.com and log in, you can use it. There's a second factor that's not factored into the example Russell brings out, and that's taxation. That's not calculated. And again, Russell's saying that this money's inside of an IRA, so this means that the tax due on the pile is calculated at income tax rates, which depending on the individual's tax brackets could be as high as 35%. So if you do the math on the pile by adding the tax, what do we get? Another diminishing shot at the pile. And so the initial fascinating results we saw at the beginning are now getting pretty sad. But what is really missing here is inflation. Inflation, although it's not visible, is real. The Austrians refer to inflation as an invisible tax on society because the general public has no notion of how it comes about. All they know is the cost of living keeps rising. So whether you use 3% or 5%, whatever the factor is for inflation, the accumulated numbers obviously take a big hit when you apply that. So let's look at that. You see how bad it is. What you're really seeing here is the process of inflation and how the purchasing power of the money is lost. So it was worth looking at that example and look at the positive and the negative sides of it, because what it shows you is just how hard it is for Americans to be able to pile up money and be able to keep any of it at the end. Each one of these eroding factors that we talked about, market volatility, taxation, and inflation, can be traced directly to our monetary policy. And it serves to remind us just the iron grip that government has on our money. And then, of course, there's the problem of control. Do we actually have control over the money we save? The individual retirement accounts, the 401ks, 403bs, and other tax-qualified government-sponsored plans, for the most part, have their underlying assets invested in the stock market through mutual funds. And this money is locked up. It's in prison. To get it out of there, you're penalized and taxed. But more importantly, without the ability to tap into your savings in cases of emergencies, Americans have very little recourse but to suffer great hardship or to be forced to borrow and go into debt. And this is where you start to see the fractional reserve connection. Now, the good news is that, astonishingly, the power of compounding, the point that Richard Russell is trying to make with his example, is that it can be achieved if your money is inside a dividend-paying whole life policy. The rates of return in a whole life policy are guaranteed never to go below the rates quoted at the time the policy is underwritten. So consequently, there's a floor, and it's immediately established that assures you of the consistency required to make compounding successful. And if the interest rates do go up, the cash values in your policy will appreciate. Perfect. In case the insured becomes disabled, the waiver of premium guarantees the payment of all premiums at no out-of-pocket cost to the insured. Again, just another way the compounding process can be protected. Perfect. It's perfect. If the dividends are paid, which are paid annually, are reinvested back into the purchase of additional insurance, well, two important things happen. For one, the increasing death benefit becomes the hedge against inflation. And then second, the accumulated cash values are not subject to tax.